स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Let us bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God Incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Today's topic, Sri Sharda Devi, the Holy Mother. We are celebrating Mother's birthday on 28th of this month, on Saturday morning at 10:30, followed by bhajans, brief talk and worship. Sri Sharda Devi's life and teachings give us tremendous inspiration and hope for our spiritual life. Nobody need any despair. Mother is there, always ready to take care of her children. Sri Sharda Devi has very clearly stated, I am the mother of the wicked, as I am the mother of the virtuous. Whenever you are in distress, whenever you feel you are helpless, whenever you are losing hope and confidence, just say to yourself, I have a mother. Then certainly I protect you in every respect. These are the words of Holy Mother. So, without any distinction between rich and poor, between the good and the wicked, irrespective of any caste, color or creed or nation, Mother extended her tremendous love and affection towards the whole creation. In fact, in this statement she has disclosed her divinity. Only Mother of the Universe can give us such assurance. It is not simply empty words. She meant what she said. So the foregoing words of Sri Sharda Devi, the divine consort of Sri Ramakrishna, admirably illustrate the essence of her infinite compassion for suffering humanity. Shardamani Devi. She was born on December 22nd, 1853, in the little village of Jairambudi in West Bengal. Just she was 5 years old, she was married to Sri Ramakrishna, who was 23 years old. So much gap between Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Sharda Devi. Sri Ramakrishna, man of state of good God intoxication, he was completely indifferent to food, sleep and other physical requirements. He had absorbed himself day and night in meditation and prayer. Sri Ramakrishna was totally spiritual. His mind was completely set on the spiritual ideal, and he did sadhana, and he got the realization of that highest truth. People, not knowing the spiritual stature of Sri Ramakrishna, took him to be a madman. His relatives finally hit upon the idea of finding him a wife so as to bring his mind to a normal state. It was about 8 years after when Sri Ramakrishna had his first contact with his new wife. The next 4 years, Sharda spent at Jairambudi. Naturally, she missed her husband, and an unexpressed anguish ate into her heart. In the meantime, a report came to the village that her husband had become insane. All rumor. And the villagers began pointing to her as a madman's wife. This was unbearable to Sharda. She made up her mind to visit Dakshineshwar and see the situation with her own eyes. So she set out for Dakshineshwar. Reaching her destination, Sri Sharda went straight to Sri Ramakrishna's room. How was she received? Most cordially, Sri Ramakrishna received her. And in no time, Sharda discovered that her husband, Sri Ramakrishna, was as tender and affectionate as ever, if not more so. Henceforth, she remained by his side as his wife and disciple, but always as a nun. Sri Ramakrishna now devoted himself to teaching her abstruse spiritual truths and the disciplines to realize them in life. He also kept an eye on her health. Soon there developed between Sri Ramakrishna and Sharda Devi a close relationship which, however, existed on a level completely inscrutable to the ordinary mind. Worshipped during her lifetime as a manifestation of divine motherhood, Sri Sharda Devi's throne was the earthen floor. Her adornments were the white sari with a thin red border and 2 simple gold bracelets. In place of bow, trident and other divine weapons, Mother carried a broom and basket. To take darshan of Mother, was to help her with the daily chores of cleaning and preparing food for offering. Her principal concern was that her children have enough to eat. All who came with her children, those who came were her children. Mother's benediction was an outstretched hand of welcome which bade one always to come again. Mother used to say, everything depends on the mind. Nothing can be achieved without purity of mind. It is said, the aspirant may have received the grace of the Guru, the Lord, and Vaishnavas, but he comes to grief without the grace of one. That one is the mind. The mind of the aspirant should be gracious to him. As a consecrated wife and spiritual companion of Sri Ramakrishna, and a spiritual teacher and luminary in her own right, Sri Sharda Devi, known worldwide as the Holy Mother, is a unique phenomenon in the realm of sacred beings. Perhaps the testament of Sri Ramakrishna himself is the best recourse to take when attempting to describe her. Once Sharda Devi was massaging Sri Ramakrishna's feet. Sharda Devi asked him what he thought of her. Sri Ramakrishna explained to her that the same mother, Bhavtarani Kali, that was in the Dakshineshwar temple, and the same mother that had given him birth, was now sitting before him holding his feet. Though admittedly this was an assessment coming from a being who saw the Divine Mother everywhere, more specific praise was forthcoming. In later years, when both of them had discovered the full divine potential in each other, Sri Ramakrishna was heard to say that the goddess Kali, goddess Saraswati and goddess Lakshmi had manifested in the present age as Sri Sharda Devi. These are the words of Sri Ramakrishna. This type of adoration coming from such a source is revealing. However, one doesn't have to look far before a boundless ocean of praise is discovered. Written and spoken not only by monks, household devotees and the public at large, but also by those who lived with her daily. One such person, who later became a Swami in the Ramakrishna order, wrote of her in a hymn, Victory to Sri Sharda, who is mother, friend, saint and teacher in one, whose life was spent in efforts to remove ignorance from the minds of those precious spiritual children who took refuge in her. O Mother of the entire universe and Saviour of the world, protector of the devotees who transmits the boon of liberation, who shows concern for the world but remains ever absorbed in God realization, salutations unto thee. Sri Sharda Devi was born in 1853 in a village in India, only a few miles from Sri Ramakrishna's birthplace, Kamarpukur. Far from coincidence, the two had a profound mission to accomplish and were destined to marry and become spiritual father and mother to thousands of aspiring beings. Though they lived a celibate life, the family that grew up around them is as diverse as the imagination can allow. From the highest ever perfect soul, such as Swami Vivekananda, to the humblest devotee and the most downtrodden unfortunate, including those laboring under evil propensities, the great Master and Holy Mother received them all as children and tended to their many problems, needs, desires and aspirations according to their capacity and temperament. It is said that Sri Sharda was a master's first disciple. Though this is true in the historical and chronological sense, she being the first to come to him after his sadhana phase, the master himself said of her, Sri Ramakrishna, referring to Sri Sharda Devi, said, "She is my power. Without her, I could not even lift a finger." That the Holy Mother is so understated historically as well as among the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna and the Western following of Swami Vivekananda is due to several factors. First, she was only a small girl of 5 when she was married to Sri Ramakrishna, he being over 23 at the time. It was both practical and fortunate that she was given training by him in worldly and spiritual matters when she later joined him at the Dakshineshwar temple in her late teens. Secondly, her own subtle and humble nature demanded that she remain behind the scenes at all times, serving the growing spiritual family and working as a hidden power behind Sri Ramakrishna's work and mission. Thirdly, many Eastern cultures have strict rules around modesty and decorum, whereby women are hidden and protected as society dictates. These strictures were heavily in effect in mid-19th century Calcutta, the scene of their Mahalila during Holy Mother's lifetime. By the Master's own admission, powerful aspects of the Divine Mother of the universe were manifest in Holy Mother. Besides her important part in his work of raising and the suffering, tending to the devotees, and serving the Master himself, she would eventually take over his mission and oversee its crucial growth and evolution when he was no longer able. After Sri Ramakrishna's Mahasamadhi in 1886, Sri Sharda Devi, then just 33 years old, became the lineage holder of the Ramakrishna order. During the initial years after his passing, she returned to Sri Ramakrishna's ancestral village and lived a simple and austere life, interspersed by several pilgrimages. Once while visiting Bodh Gaya, the sight of how the monks there lived in comfort compared to the impoverished conditions of her own monastic sons caused her to pray intensely to the Master for a place where his disciples could live and worship accordingly. Later, when land for a monastery had been secured, due in part to Swami Vivekananda's inspiring work in India and abroad, the Holy Mother received the many devotees and visitors that came due to Sri Ramakrishna's growing fame. The monastic and household devotees of the Master alike acknowledged her as a mother of the Ramakrishna order, and she assumed and dispatched all duties allotted her with concern and efficiency. When a person takes refuge with God, life's goal changes. God himself reverses his destiny. Does he grow a pair of horns? Does he grow a pair of horns? No. But he can distinguish good from evil, discover knowledge and pass beyond the reach of life and death. You must find him in your meditations. Who has been more than this? To whom has he actually spoken? It is in spiritual transports one sees him, talks with him, and so on. One of the more important of these duties involved initiating the growing number of seekers who are attracted to Sri Ramakrishna and the direct disciples. How fortunate were those who received direct mantra diksha from the Divine Mother of the universe herself through the open and pure channel of Sri Sharda Devi. Hundreds of these souls were granted admission into spiritual life and instruction in sadhana by Holy Mother. As part of Sri Ramakrishna's mission, as well as Swami Vivekananda's work in India and throughout the world, the upliftment of the suffering masses was of paramount importance. In line with this task, the development and emancipation of women played an essential part, for the Master and his foremost disciple knew that no regeneration of society would be possible if this was not accomplished. The Divine Mother of the Universe simply would not manifest in the collective heart of humanity if the Divine Shakti lying dormant in all beings was not propitiated and revered. In this respect, the Holy Mother represents the ideal of contemporary womanhood, a perfect example of fully awakened, fully illumined Shakti power. As Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda removed the veils of weakness and ignorance covering the minds of human beings everywhere, the Holy Mother opened the floodgates for divine feminine expression, showing a way to liberation and acting as an example for women the world over to follow. In her is seen the exquisitely balanced blend of power and modesty, strength and humility, detachment and compassion, purity and practicality. By accepting her as the ultimate standard for the women of contemporary times, immaculate Shakti power will emerge, and homes, families, schools, workplaces and spiritual centers will again become pure and divinized. When Holy Mother came to Dakshineshwar at the age of 16, Sri Ramakrishna asked her whether she had come to pull him down to a worldly life. Without hesitation, Sri Sharda Devi said, "No, I am here to help you realize your chosen ideal." From then on, Holy Mother lived with Sri Ramakrishna as his spiritual companion, devoted wife, disciple, and always the nun. She was the embodiment of purity. Her mind was never sullied by the faintest breath of worldliness. Though she lived with Sri Ramakrishna for the greater part of 14 years, she never missed communion with God, whom she described as lying in the palm of her hand, though she was engaged day and night in various activities. Holy Mother was an unusual awakener of souls. With her disciples, she served as teacher, dissolving their doubts, as mother who through love and compassion won their hearts, and as the divinity who assured them of liberation. Herself nearly illiterate, through simple words she taught them the most profound truths. Her affectionate maternal love tamed their rebellious spirits, but her great power lay in her solicitude for all. Often she said, "I am the mother. Who will look after them if not I?" She encouraged them when they were depressed because of slow spiritual progress, and she took upon herself their sins and iniquities, suffering on that account. She would suffer for the sake of the devotees. Holy Mother was conscious of her divine nature, but she rarely expressed this awareness. For many years, Sri Ramakrishna practiced great austerities and formally renounced the world. But Holy Mother lived as a simple householder, surrounded by quarrelsome and greedy relatives. As a teacher, she taught the realization of God alone is real and everything else impermanent. The human body, so treasured by most people, survives cremations as only 3 pounds of ashes. Holy Mother, humility herself, claimed that she was in no way different from other devotees of the Master. Her disciples felt awed and uplifted when she blessed them by touching their head with the same hand which had touched the feet of God. She was fully aware of her disciples' present limitations and their future possibilities. No one went away from her with a downcast heart. The outstanding virtues of Indian womanhood are courage, serenity, self-control, sweetness, compassion, wisdom, and intuitive relationship with God. Holy Mother possessed all these virtues. Since the acquisition of such gifts is a dream of all women, Holy Mother may aptly be seen as a symbol of aspiration of women everywhere. O Sharda, propitious goddess, killer of misery in souls resigned, savior of religion in every age, by saints and sages worshipped, O Mother kind, give us love and wisdom, thou, O grace incarnate, to thee we bow. Once Swami Shardananda was asked to write a biography of the Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi. The Swami kept quiet for a long time and then replied by humming a song which signified that he had been unable to understand the Mother's divine play. In this context, one is reminded of the feelings expressed by Sister Nivedita in one of her beautiful letters. The sister wanted to send a wonderful hymn or a prayer to the Holy Mother, but felt even that would seem too loud, too full of noise, in comparison to the serenity of the Mother. We should be very still and quiet in her presence, Nivedita realized. Like the greatest and sublimest creation of the Lord, Nivedita wrote, like the morning dew, the Ganga and the Himalaya, Mother is quiet, and yet she is all beauty, all purity and sublimity in its highest sense. The highest men are calm, silent and unknown, said Swami Vivekananda. Similar feelings were experienced by Swamiji and other great disciples of Sri Ramakrishna whenever they went in the presence of the Holy Mother. Swamiji had argued and fought every inch of the way with Sri Ramakrishna and did not swallow his word without being convinced. But Swami Vivekananda never did so with the Holy Mother. He used to accept her command unhesitatingly. For example, he had planned to perform animal sacrifice as a part of the Durga Puja at the Belur Math. But when the Holy Mother disapproved of the idea, Swamiji immediately dropped it. Once the Swami dismissed a cook on a charge of theft. The poor man went and approached the Holy Mother, and when she sent him back to be reinstated, Swamiji accepted her verdict without the least protest. Once Swami Vivekananda wanted to sell away even the newly acquired Belur Math to procure enough money for plague relief work. It was again the command of the Holy Mother which deterred him from doing so. Swami Shardananda accepted the divine unity of Sri Ramakrishna and the Holy Mother, but pointing out the difference, he said that while it was possible to argue with Sri Ramakrishna, one could not do so with the Holy Mother. Her few soft words had a strange power that would at once silence even the loudest arguments. Why was it so? Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, and Swami Vivekananda had a common message to deliver, but each had an assigned task. The Holy Mother's role is not exactly the same as that of Sri Ramakrishna's or Swami Vivekananda's. Swami Vivekananda's great task was to present to the world the ideas and ideals as lived and demonstrated by Sri Ramakrishna. But he wanted to present them in a manner intelligible to modern man. The Holy Mother's task was to present and demonstrate the spiritual side of the same message, especially the power and love of the Divine Motherhood in a human body. While Swamiji's appeal is to the intellect, the Holy Mother's is always directly to the heart. Swamiji satisfies the intellectual hunger of modern man. The Holy Mother's words so great, they go straight into the heart of the listeners with a rare and irresistible power. But more than words, it is the unseen aura of her love and affection for all that would strike a newcomer to her. She appears at the very first sight as the real mother of all. When as a young boy, Swami Virajananda first saw Holy Mother, he at once felt the presence of his own mother of many births. Words can express only the thoughts arising in the mind and not the sentiments of the heart. It was neither possible nor necessary to argue with the Holy Mother. She could convey whatever she wanted to without the exchange of words. When she went to visit South India, many South Indians didn't know her tongue, and yet they understood what she spoke, and all felt an unspeakable sense of bliss and fulfillment in her presence. She used to work at a level deeper than thought or language. That's why Nivedita, Walpole and Josephine MacLeod understood every word she first spoke to them in Bengali. And none of them failed to understand her spiritual profundity and universal love when she first addressed them as my daughters. Swami Vivekananda said, if there is a conflict between the head and the heart, follow the heart. We may sometimes apply this rule in choosing between the teachings of Swamiji and those of the Holy Mothers. In case of doubt, let us accept what Mother teaches. Swamiji had the tremendous capacity of presenting even opposite ideas in a way that would make them appear equally true. When he spoke of any one of the 4 yogas, for example, he used to extol that particular path as the best of all. This used to confuse his listeners. To such a brother disciple who was in dilemma after listening to Swami Vivekananda, Swami Yogananda had advised to follow the words of Holy Mother. What was the secret of the Holy Mother's infallibility? Why was it that in every matter she hit the mark, that her judgment never failed? It was because of love. Learning may fail, love never fails. Rightly has it been said, all errors are the want of love. All errors of judgment, understanding and action are due to the want of love. This brings us to another comment of Sister Nivedita. She calls the Holy Mother Sri Ramakrishna's own chalice of love for the world. It is indeed Sri Ramakrishna's intense, unfathomable love for suffering humanity, men and women in bondage, either social or spiritual, which was condensed and personified in the form of the Holy Mother. He made the Holy Mother a receptacle and a conduit in and through which he could pour out his unbounded love for humanity, irrespective of caste, creed and nationality. Sri Ramakrishna had poured his own divine love into the Holy Mother's heart when she was a girl of 14, had for the first time after marriage an opportunity to live with him. Describing the experience, the Holy Mother used to say, my heart remained incessantly so very full of an indescribable bliss that I have always felt since then as if a jar of bliss full to the overflowing was installed in my heart. The effect of this sense of fulfillment was far-reaching. It made her selfless and infinitely sympathetic to the sorrows and miseries of humanity. Sri Ramakrishna's compassion for humanity transformed her by degrees into an embodiment of compassion itself. When Sri Ramakrishna asked her to look after the Calcuttans, wallowing in the mire of the darkness of ignorance, Holy Mother initially felt herself unequal to this task, but Sri Ramakrishna's love began to flow through her, and she emerged as the mother of all, saint or sinner, high or low. Further inpouring of this love occurred at the time of Shodashi Puja, when Sri Ramakrishna instilled into her spiritually awakened soul the nectar of love and bliss which she had gathered by 12 long years of superhuman spiritual practices for the welfare of humanity. To this the Holy Mother added her own quota by doing 100,000 japa daily for years together. And then out of the fullness of her heart, a cry went forth like that of Jesus. Come all ye that labor and leave thy burden on me. It is for us to respond to her call and run to her as would Sister Nivedita and drink deep the nectar of divine bliss in her quiet presence. In the eyes of the sister, it was foolish even to try to meditate in the mother's presence. The mother herself used to dissuade devotees who tried to do a lot of japa and meditation in her presence at Jairambati. Instead, she asked them to live freely and cheerfully like children in their mother's presence. Another important message of Holy Mother, a call for surrender. This brings us to another speciality of the Holy Mother's message. The superhuman spiritual practices of Sri Ramakrishna inspires one to practice at least 1/16th of it to see God. Swami Vivekananda urges one to intense activity, to sacrifice one's life for the good of mankind. But the Mother wants us to relinquish even the ego of a spiritual aspirant or that of a reformer and to surrender to her without caring for one's own salvation or the welfare of the world. And the balanced combination of these three, namely meditation, work and surrender, would conduce to the greatest good. This is the composite message of the Trinity, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother and Swami Vivekananda. In the life and message of all incarnations, we see two sets of teachings, one emphasizing self-effort and the other self-surrender. An incarnation of God shows us the path and by his own exemplary life sets an example to be emulated. Secondly, by his divine power, he takes the burden of the weaker man on his shoulders and urges him to do his best for God and then resign to the divine will. Individuals too differ in their mental makeup. There are some strong enough to stand on their own feet, but there are others who are weak and need to learn upon others. They need to lean upon others. This is not all. Each human being is conscious of his powers as well as limitations. There never was a man so strong as never to feel the need to relax or seek help. At one moment, man feels free to do certain things. The next moment he realizes his limitations. Both strength and weakness, ability and inability can and must be made use of in order to attain highest perfection. The Holy Mother's teachings are in many cases meant for those who are conscious of their weaknesses more than their ability. In her teachings we find again and again such statements as, "What can you do? How much can you do? I am doing all for you. Have no fear. I have taken upon me your responsibility. Remember always that you have a mother to fall back upon." As an affectionate mother, she was fully aware of the utter helplessness of the multitude of her children and could fully realize the frustration and despair which they have to face so often in life. At such moments she would stand out to them as their mother with a superhuman power of protection and elevation. The next point is the recovery of faith. In this context, it may be mentioned that the Holy Mother emphasizes the personality of and advocates faith in the incarnation of this age, Sri Ramakrishna. Every incarnation not only rediscovers and demonstrates the universal and eternal spiritual principles and presents them in a manner befitting the times, but he, in his own capacity, also becomes the Ishta or the ideal. Like the previous ones, the new incarnation in his turn is worshipped by his followers as a human manifestation of the Almighty or God. Both these aspects in the life of an incarnation are important. One gives breadth to his message, the other deepens it. The universal and philosophical truths based only on principles are only for the select few. But when such truths are demonstrated through the personality, and the earthly divine play of the incarnation. A new cult is formed of which the God-man becomes the center. While Swami Vivekananda preached the ideals and spiritual principles as represented in the life of Sri Ramakrishna without even naming him, the Holy Mother emphasized faith in the life and personality of Sri Ramakrishna. She repeatedly stressed the divinity, the godhood of Sri Ramakrishna, so that the disciples may have firm faith in Sri Ramakrishna as their chosen ideal. Ultimately, it is faith and not reason which imparts stability to an individual. Faith is not belief. It is not mere reason. Faith is a grasp on the ultimate, as Swamiji said. In the present age of crisis of faith, the efforts for its recovery through the life of Sri Ramakrishna, as shown by Holy Mother, therefore gain great importance. Love, faith and surrender, all these three messages of the Holy Mother are related to the emotional or the affective aspect of human psyche. She therefore fulfills one of the greatest needs of the times by emotionally integrating and stabilizing man through inculcating faith in the incarnation power. But as long as man remains the recipient only, the process is not complete. He must not only be the receiver, but must also become the donor of love, sympathy and consolation, without which there cannot be true fulfillment. This the Holy Mother fully realized, and hence, although she was always ready to give, she also taught others to be givers of love, help and consolation in their turn. We remember her advice to the head of an ashrama who was too exacting and demanded strict obedience from his subordinates. When he complained that they were not sufficiently obedient to him, Sri Sharda Devi snubbed him, reminding that love was the binding force in a religious community and that he should command by love rather than demand obedience. Her last message to a lady devotee who was weeping at her imminent passing away has become immortal. Why do you fear? Mother said to her, you have seen the Master. But I tell you one thing, if you want peace of mind, do not find fault with others, rather see your own faults. Learn to make the whole world your own. No one is a stranger, my child. The whole world is your own. By reminding that she had seen and known the manifest divinity of the Master, the mother wanted the devotees to have firm faith in Sri Ramakrishna and in the ways of all engulfing love in which he moved and lived. We see faults in others only when we lack love. But we shall cease to find faults in them and thus gain abiding peace if we begin to love them. And the only way of making others one's own is to win over them by loving care and service, by giving help and consolation, and what little we can without asking for a return. This is what the Holy Mother did and taught. As for those who depend upon God and have faith in Him, well, that itself is their spiritual practice. God is one's very own. It is an eternal relationship. One realizes Him in proportion to the intensity of one's feeling for Him. Don't be afraid. Always remember that somebody is protecting you. How many are there who truly want to realize God? They no doubt profess great devotion and longing, but they feel satisfied when they get even a tiny bit of enjoyment. They say, oh, how kind is God. Always do your duty to others, but love you must give to God alone. Worldly love always brings in its wake untold misery. If you love any human being, you will have to suffer for it. That person is blessed indeed who can love God alone. There is no suffering in loving God. Everything will come in time, my child. Be devoted to Him and take shelter at His feet. It's enough to remember that there is someone, call him father or mother, who is always protecting you. Repeat the name of God always in the innermost core of your heart. And in all sincerity, take refuge in Sri Ramakrishna. Don't bother to know how your mind is reacting to things around. And do not waste time in calculating and worrying over whether or not you are progressing in the path of spirituality. It is egotism to judge progress for oneself. Have faith in the grace of your Guru and God. Why are you so restless? Why don't you stick on to what you have got? Always remember, I told you, always remember, I have at least a mother, if none else. Holy Mother said, do you know the significance of japa and other spiritual practices? By these the power of the sense organs is subdued and the ties of the past karma are cut asunder. But realization of God cannot be achieved without ecstatic love for Him. That is, without prema bhakti, you can't achieve realization of God. Disciple asked a question, but how can one yearn for God without seeing the manifestation of His love? Holy Mother replied, yes, you can do so. There lies the grace of God. You see, it is the nature of water to flow downwards, but the sun's rays lift it up towards the sky. Likewise, it is the very nature of mind to go to lower things, to objects of enjoyment. But the grace of God can make the mind go towards higher objects. Lay the burden of your mind before Sri Ramakrishna. Tell him your sorrow with your tears. You will find that he will fill your arms with the desired object. Referring to Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother once said, as a king walks through his city in disguise, he disappeared the moment he became known. He who has really prayed to Sri Ramakrishna even once has nothing to fear. By praying to him constantly, one gets ecstatic love through his grace. This ecstatic love, my child, is the innermost thing of spiritual life. The gopis of Vrindavan attained it. They were not aware of anything else in the world except Sri Krishna. My child, this world is like a deep, marshy place. Once a person gets entangled there, it becomes very difficult to come out. Repeat the name of God. If you do so, you will cut away your bondage. Someday, then you will be freed. Can anyone get liberation unless he himself removes the shackles? Have deep faith in God. Look upon Sri Ramakrishna as your refuge, even as children regarded their parents. How little intelligence does a person possess? The person may require one thing, but ask for another. A person starts to mold an image of Shiva and often ends by making that a monkey. It is best, therefore, to surrender all desires at the feet of God. He will do whatever is best for us. But one may pray for devotion and detachment. These cannot be classified as desires. What does one become by realizing God? Does one get two horns? No. What happens is, the person develops discrimination between the real and the unreal, gets spiritual consciousness, and goes beyond life and death. One who is able to renounce all for his sake is a living God. Even the decrees of fate are cancelled if one takes refuge in God. Fate strikes off with her own hand what she has written about such a person. Those who really is anxious to cross the ocean of the world will somehow break their bonds. No one can entangle such people. Always discriminate. Whenever the mind goes after anything other than God, consider it as transient and surrender the mind at the sacred feet of the Lord. Be like the man who, while angling for fish, became so absorbed in it that he did not hear the least of the din and bustle of a marriage procession passing by. Everything, husband, wife, or even the body, is illusory. These are shackles of illusion. Unless you can free yourself from these bondages, you will never be able to go to the other shore of the world. Even this attachment to the body, the identification of the self with the body must go. What is this body, my darling? It is nothing but 3 pounds of ashes when it is cremated. Why so much vanity about it? However strong or beautiful this body may be, its culmination is in those 3 pounds of ashes, and still people are so attached to it. My child, this mind is just like a wild elephant. It races with the wind. Therefore, one should discriminate all the time. One should work hard for the realization of God. This world is moving around like a wheel. That indeed is the last birth in which one gets completely rid of all desires. Does one get a faith by mere study of books? Too much reading creates confusion. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that one should learn from the scriptures that God alone is real and the world illusory. As you meditate, you will realize that He who is in me is in you too, and in the humblest of people. Only then will humility grow in your mind. People have been worshipping images from time immemorial and attaining liberation through that. Do you want to say that does not mean anything? Sri Ramakrishna had no such narrow dogmatic views. God is everywhere. But this you must believe. Holy people are born to guide others, and each one talks in a different way. There are many ways. And so, what each one says is true. In the course of one's spiritual advancement, one comes to the stage when one does not feel even the existence of God. After attaining wisdom, one sees that the forms of gods and deities are all Maya. Everything comes into existence in time and also disappears in time. The aspirant then realizes that the Mother alone pervades the entire universe as the Supreme Spirit. All then become one. This is the simple truth. Pray to the Lord to make your heart as pure as a star. As a result of sincere and regular japa and meditation, you will find that the Lord will speak to you. All your desires will be fulfilled and you will experience pure bliss. The Kundalini will awaken in course of time. Do japa and meditation. It does not rise of itself. Continuous meditation will make the mind so steady that you will not feel inclined to give it up. When the mind is not in a mood to meditate, do not force it to do so. In such conditions, get up from the seat of meditation after making prostrations. Real meditation is of a spontaneous nature. If meditation is not possible, do japa. Realization will come through japa, through repetition of God's name. Realization of God or meditation, all these depend on the mind. Concentrate and everything will come to pass. Mind this, my child. One has to take refuge and wait on God's mercy. Then only it takes pity. A pure mind easily gets concentrated in meditation. When pure souls perform japa, they feel as if the holy name bubbles up spontaneously from within themselves. They do not make any effort to repeat the name. It comes spontaneously. The Kundalini will gradually be awakened. You will realize everything by the repetition of God's name. Even if the mind be not quiet, still you can sit at a place and repeat the holy name 1,000,000 times. As wind removes the cloud, so the name of God destroys the cloud of worldliness. Repeating the name of God once, when the mind is controlled, is equivalent to 1,000,000 repetitions when the mind is away from God. You may repeat the name for the whole day, but if the mind be elsewhere, that does not produce much result. The repetition must be accompanied by concentration. Then alone one gets the grace of God. One must repeat the mantra at least 15 to 20,000 times a day. These are all teachings of Holy Mother. Then only one will get some results. One is sure to get it. One must practice first before one complains that one is not progressing. But then one must practice japa with a little concentration. People don't practice and simply say, why am not progressing spiritually. Do not give up japa even if the mind is unsteady and unwilling. You must go on with the repetition, and you will find that the mind is getting gradually steadier, like a flame in a windless corner. Any movement in the air disturbs the steady burning of the flame. Even so, the presence of any thought or desire makes the mind unsteady. The mantra must be correctly repeated. Incorrect utterance delays progress. One should practice japa and meditation at regular times, giving up idleness. While living at Dakshineshwar, mother said, I used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and practice japa and meditation. One day I felt a little indisposed and left the bed rather late. The next day I woke up still late through laziness. Gradually I found that I did not feel inclined to get up early at all. Then I said to myself, at last I have fallen a victim to idleness. Thereupon I began to force myself to get up early. Gradually I got back my former habit. In such matters, one should keep up the practice with unyielding resolution. You must be very firm in your spiritual pursuit. Sri Sharda Devi was Sri Ramakrishna's holy consort. Her life was a perfect example of unselfish and silent service to the Lord. Sri Sharda Devi incarnated the ideal of divine motherhood. She had unlimited love and compassion to all. Her generosity had no bounds. She was the refuge of many and is considered the perfect realization of God as mother. Sri Sharda Devi's message of love, renunciation and purity has a timeless value. I conclude my talk by Swami Brahmanandaji's observations about Holy Mother. Swami Brahmanandaji, the direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, he said, if you want the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, first propitiate Holy Mother. She holds in her hand the key to the highest spiritual knowledge. Mukti, bliss and all that are in Mother's keeping. There is no difference between Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. Through Mother's grace, attainment of mukti becomes easy. So, we shall not feel any desperation in our life. As Mother has assured, whenever we are in such helpless position, we should call on her. Mother, please guide us and protect us. Remove all dangers in our path. If the prayer is done sincerely, the prayer will be fulfilled. So, these are the teachings of Holy Mother, that we should constantly repeat God's name. Doing japa is very important and it leads to realization of God. Just like the example is given, the chain is hooked up to a log which is merged in the water. If you hold on to the link of the chain and proceeding along the chain, finally you reach the log merged in the water. Even so, by repeating constantly the name of God, you reach God. And there are many, many instances how God was realized by constant repetition of divine name. The famous example is given. Valmiki, a hunter, daylight robber, was transformed by the grace of the Guru, Narada Maharshi. who initiated him into Ram Mantra, and he told him, go and repeat Rama's name. In fact, the hunter was unable even to repeat Rama's name properly. Whenever Narada Maharshi said, repeat Rama, he would say Mara. 2-3 times Narada Maharshi asked him to repeat. 2-3 times he repeated same way, Mara, Mara, like that. Then he found a device, well, non-stop you repeat, then it becomes Rama. Mara, 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 it becomes Rama. Non-stop. If you make a stop, it will become Mara. He understood. So from that time onwards, he sat under a tree and began to read Rama continuously. So much so, the anthill grew up. He was not aware of that. That's why he is called Valmiki. Valmiki means anthill. And he became the greatest rishis who wrote Ramayana, the story of Rama. And there is instance of Draupadi in Mahabharata, how she was in a very distressed condition when Dushasana was humiliating her in the court, disrobing her. She prayed to Lord Krishna, oh Krishna, protect me. Immediately she was protected. So there are so many instances in the lives of spiritual aspirants. The glory of God one can realize through His name. And since all the spiritual teachers have emphasized this fact, that's enough for us to have faith and repeat God's name. That's the way how to purify ourselves and to get liberation. So with these words I conclude my talk. Thank you very much. Om Sahana Bhavato Sahanau Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. May the Lord protect us, may He nourish us, may our knowledge be fruitful and enlightened, may we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.